My dear child. Pause for a moment and listen closely, because what you are about to hear may feel strangely familiar to your heart. There are moments in life that arrive without warning. Moments that seem ordinary on the surface, yet quietly carry the power to change everything. This is one of those moments. Somewhere beyond your current view, a conversation is waiting to happen. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Soon. And the reason it matters is because something unexpected has shifted. For a long time, your soulmate believed they understood the story. They believed they knew where they stood, what was possible, and what was not. They carried assumptions. They carried questions. They carried doubts they never spoke aloud. But recently, something happened. Something they did not plan. Something they did not expect. And since that moment, they have not been able to think about you the same way again. What changed? That is the question that keeps returning to them. The strange part is that the answer did not arrive through a grand event. It arrived quietly. In a simple moment. A passing thought. A memory. A realization. Yet somehow, that realization became impossible to ignore. And now your name carries a different meaning in their heart. Take a deep breath and stay with this story. Because the next part is where everything begins to unfold. There was a time when your soulmate tried to convince themselves that moving forward would be easier. Easier than waiting. Easier than wondering. Easier than facing emotions that felt bigger than words. They told themselves that distance would solve everything. They believed silence would bring clarity. But silence did not bring clarity. Instead, it brought something unexpected. The more they tried not to think about you, the more reminders seemed to appear. A familiar song. A familiar place. A familiar feeling. And with every reminder, one question became louder. What if I misunderstood everything? That question refused to disappear. Day after day. Moment after moment. Until eventually, they found themselves looking back at everything they thought they knew. And that is when the truth began to reveal itself. Not all at once. Piece by piece. Like a puzzle slowly coming together. The truth was not about circumstances. The truth was not about timing. The truth was not about distance. The truth was about value. Your value. Your presence. Your impact. The things they once overlooked suddenly became impossible to ignore. The kindness they remembered. The conversations they replayed. The moments that seemed small at the time but now felt incredibly important. And as these realizations grew, something inside them changed. A wall began to fall. A door began to open. A possibility they had once dismissed suddenly felt real. Imagine standing at the edge of a path you never expected to walk. That is where they find themselves now. Because once a person sees something clearly, they cannot pretend they never saw it. Once a heart understands something deeply, it cannot return to confusion. And your soulmate has begun to understand something. Something powerful. Something meaningful. Something that is still unfolding even as you hear these words. The story is not finished. In fact, it may only be beginning. Because what happened next surprised even them. The realization was not the end. It was the beginning of a much bigger discovery. A discovery connected to you. A discovery connected to the future. And a discovery connected to a conversation they feel increasingly unable to avoid. They want answers. They want clarity. They want to understand what this feeling truly means. But more than anything, they want to speak. Because sometimes a single conversation can change the direction of an entire journey. And sometimes the words left unsaid become the words that matter most. So remain here for a little longer. Because in the next part, you will discover the unexpected event that turned a quiet realization into something impossible for them to ignore. The moment was small. The impact was enormous. And after it happened, nothing felt quite the same anymore. A strange detail appeared when your soulmate least expected it. It was not a dramatic scene. It was not a message flashing across a screen. It was not a coincidence they could easily dismiss. It was a realization that arrived so quietly that at first they almost ignored it. Yet the moment it entered their mind, everything began to shift. The more they thought about it, the more impossible it became to forget. They suddenly understood that the feelings they had been trying to organize no longer fit inside the explanations they had been giving themselves. Every answer created a new question. Every memory unlocked another memory. Every attempt to move on somehow brought them back to you. And that is why this feels urgent. Not because of fear. Not because of pressure. But because something inside them has finally become clear. They need to talk to you. They need to understand what all of this means. They need to know if the connection they keep feeling is as real as it seems. For so long they thought time would make these emotions disappear. Instead, time made them stronger. The more distance there was, the more obvious the truth became. The more they tried to focus elsewhere, the more their thoughts returned to you. And then something happened that completely caught them off guard. A memory resurfaced. A small moment they once considered unimportant. A conversation. A glance. A feeling. Suddenly it looked different. Suddenly it carried a meaning they had never seen before. That single realization opened a door that had been locked for a very long time. Once it opened, everything started connecting together. They began seeing patterns they had missed. They began understanding lessons they had overlooked. They began recognizing how often you had appeared in the most meaningful chapters of their story. The shocking part is that they are no longer asking whether you mattered. They already know you did. The question now is how much. And the answer is far bigger than they expected. Every day this understanding grows stronger. Every day it becomes harder to ignore. Every day they feel more certain that a conversation needs to happen. There is something unfinished here. Something important. Something that refuses to fade away. Your soulmate can feel it. They can sense it. They can no longer pretend it is not there. The truth is becoming impossible to avoid. What once looked ordinary now feels extraordinary. What once looked accidental now feels meaningful. What once felt uncertain now feels surprisingly clear. Yet the biggest surprise has not happened yet. Because the discovery that changed everything was only the beginning. Another realization is approaching. Another piece of the puzzle is about to fall into place. And when it does, the way they see you may transform forever. They thought they were searching for answers. Instead, they were walking directly toward a truth they never expected to find. A truth connected to you. A truth connected to the future. A truth connected to a conversation they can no longer postpone. The closer they get to that realization, the stronger the feeling becomes. Something important is approaching. Something meaningful is unfolding. Something neither of you may have fully understood before. And in the next part, you will discover the unexpected moment that made your soulmate stop everything and look at your connection in a completely different way. That moment lasted only seconds, but the impact continues even now. And once you hear what happened, you will understand why they suddenly feel such a powerful need to talk to you. Without warning, a single moment changed the direction of everything. Your soulmate was not searching for answers that day. They were focused on ordinary things, moving through an ordinary routine, expecting an ordinary outcome. But life has a strange way of revealing important truths when people least expect them. What happened next was so subtle that another person might have ignored it completely. Yet for your soulmate, it felt impossible to forget. A thought entered their mind, and instead of disappearing, it stayed. Minutes passed. Hours passed. The thought remained. Then another thought followed it. Then another. Before long, they found themselves revisiting memories they had not examined in a very long time. The surprising part was not the memories themselves. The surprising part was what they suddenly understood about them. Details they once overlooked now seemed important. Conversations they once dismissed now felt meaningful. Moments they once considered ordinary now appeared extraordinary. It was as if someone had quietly adjusted the focus of a lens. The picture had always been there, but now they could finally see it clearly. And what they saw led directly back to you. The more they reflected, the stronger the realization became. They started noticing how often your presence appeared during moments that truly mattered. They noticed how often thoughts of you returned during important decisions. They noticed how often memories connected to you carried emotions that never completely disappeared. That discovery shook them more than they expected. Not because it was frightening. Not because it was overwhelming. But because it felt undeniably real. They had spent so much time trying to explain things logically that they forgot to listen to what their heart had been saying all along. And now, for the first time, they are listening. That is why the title of this message matters so much. Your soulmate needs to talk to you immediately because something big just happened inside their understanding. A wall of confusion is beginning to fall. A layer of uncertainty is beginning to disappear. Questions that once seemed impossible are slowly finding answers. But here is where the story becomes even more surprising. The realization did not bring closure. It brought curiosity. It brought hope. It brought a desire to know more. Instead of feeling finished, the story suddenly felt unfinished. Instead of feeling complete, it felt like an important chapter had never been written. And that feeling continues to grow stronger every day. There are moments when they catch themselves wondering what they would say if they had the chance to speak openly. There are moments when they imagine explaining everything they have recently discovered. There are moments when they feel that a conversation could change far more than they once believed possible. Yet another unexpected development is already beginning. Something is forming beneath the surface. Something connected to a truth they have not fully recognized yet. They can sense it approaching, even if they cannot describe it completely. Every sign points toward the same conclusion. Every reflection leads to the same place. Every unanswered question somehow circles back to you. That is why this story is becoming impossible for them to ignore. The connection no longer feels like a passing thought. It no longer feels like a temporary feeling. It feels significant. It feels meaningful. It feels important enough to deserve attention. And then, just when they thought they had already uncovered the biggest revelation, another piece appeared. A detail so unexpected that it forced them to stop and reconsider everything once again. This detail connected moments from the past in a way they had never imagined. Suddenly, events that seemed unrelated started making sense. Suddenly, memories that felt scattered formed a clear pattern. Suddenly, what looked random began to look purposeful. That realization is leading directly toward the next chapter of this story. And when that chapter opens, the need for communication becomes even stronger. Because the truth they are approaching may explain why your paths have remained connected in ways neither of you fully understood before. In the next part, you will discover the unexpected clue that brought everything together and made your soulmate realize that what they are feeling can no longer be ignored. The discovery was simple, yet its impact was extraordinary. And after it happened, the future no longer looked the same. An answer appeared where your soulmate expected to find another question. For a very long time they believed the story between you and them was complicated because there was not enough clarity. They thought more time would eventually provide the answers they needed. They thought distance would help them understand what was real and what was not. But something unexpected happened. The longer they waited, the clearer everything became. The clue that changed everything was not dramatic. It was not a sign written across the sky. It was a realization hidden inside memories they had already lived through. Suddenly they noticed that every important turning point seemed to carry a connection to you. Every major lesson somehow pointed back to something you had said, something you had inspired, or something you had awakened within them. At first they resisted the conclusion. They searched for other explanations. They looked for simpler answers. Yet every path led to the same destination. Every reflection led to the same truth. Every question eventually returned to your name. That was the moment everything shifted. Your soulmate stopped asking whether this connection mattered. Instead, they began asking why it mattered so much. And the more they explored that question, the more astonishing the answers became. They realized that some of their happiest memories included you in ways they had never fully appreciated. They realized that some of their strongest moments were influenced by lessons connected to you. They realized that some of their most important growth happened because of experiences involving you. Piece by piece, the full picture started coming together. What once looked like isolated moments became a meaningful pattern. What once looked ordinary became extraordinary. What once seemed uncertain began to feel undeniable. That discovery has created a powerful sense of urgency inside them. Not panic. Not pressure. But urgency. The kind that appears when someone realizes they have been overlooking something valuable for far too long. The kind that appears when someone understands that a conversation can no longer be postponed. They keep imagining what they would say if they had the opportunity to speak honestly. They keep replaying possibilities. They keep wondering whether you would understand the journey they have been through recently. Because the truth is this. They are not the same person they were before these realizations began. Something has changed. Something has matured. Something has awakened. The understanding they now carry feels deeper than before. The appreciation feels stronger than before. The desire for clarity feels greater than before. Yet the biggest revelation may still be ahead. Because while reviewing everything they thought they knew, your soulmate discovered one final detail that connected every piece together. This detail was small enough to be missed by almost anyone else. Yet when they noticed it, they could not stop thinking about it. It was the missing piece. The final connection. The answer hidden inside the question itself. And once they saw it, they understood why thoughts of you continued returning no matter how much time passed. They understood why certain memories remained vivid while others faded away. They understood why your presence still carried significance after all this time. That realization left them completely speechless. Not because it answered everything. But because it answered enough. Enough to know that this story is not finished. Enough to know that important conversations still need to happen. Enough to know that the future may hold possibilities they once believed were impossible. Now they stand at a crossroads between what was and what could be. Behind them are old assumptions. Ahead of them is a new understanding. And in the middle of it all is a truth that continues growing stronger with every passing day. They feel closer than ever to expressing what has been building inside their heart. They feel closer than ever to sharing what they have discovered. They feel closer than ever to revealing the realization that changed everything. But before that moment arrives, one final chapter must unfold. Because another unexpected event is approaching. An event that may confirm everything they have recently learned. An event that may finally explain why this connection has remained so important. And when it happens, your soulmate may find it impossible to stay silent any longer. In the next part, you will discover the final realization that brought all the pieces together and made them understand why they suddenly feel such a powerful need to reach out. What they learned was simple. What it meant was extraordinary. And after that moment, nothing looked the same again. For the first time in a very long time, your soulmate stopped running from the truth and started walking toward it. The final realization did not arrive in a dramatic flash. It arrived through a series of quiet moments that slowly built into something impossible to deny. One memory connected to another. One answer connected to another. One discovery connected to another. And suddenly they found themselves standing in front of a truth that had been waiting patiently all along. The truth was simple. Yet its impact was enormous. They realized that no matter how many times life changed, no matter how many distractions appeared, and no matter how many new chapters began, thoughts of you continued to return with remarkable consistency. Not because they were trying to hold on. Not because they were refusing to move forward. But because something about your connection had never fully left their heart. This realization changed everything. It transformed confusion into understanding. It transformed uncertainty into clarity. It transformed questions into possibilities. And most importantly, it created a powerful desire to communicate. Your soulmate began imagining what would happen if every assumption was set aside and every misunderstanding was replaced with honesty. They wondered how much could change through a single genuine conversation. They wondered how many unanswered questions could finally find peace. They wondered whether the connection they kept feeling was guiding them towards something important. As these thoughts grew stronger, another surprising discovery emerged. They realized that many of the reasons they once used to create distance were no longer as powerful as they seemed. The obstacles that once appeared enormous suddenly looked smaller. The doubts that once felt convincing suddenly felt weaker. The fears that once controlled their decisions began losing their influence. It was as though a new perspective had arrived and quietly changed the meaning of everything. The more they looked at the situation through this new lens, the more obvious one truth became. There was still something worth exploring. There was still something worth understanding. There was still something worth saying. And that realization filled them with a mixture of excitement and anticipation. They know they cannot remain in silence forever. They know certain feelings deserve acknowledgement. They know certain truths deserve expression. Yet there is one final piece of the story that makes this moment even more significant. Recently, they experienced something that felt almost symbolic. It was a reminder that appeared at exactly the right time. A reminder that caused them to pause and reflect on how far they had come. A reminder that brought your name back into focus once again. To someone else, it may have seemed ordinary. To them, it felt meaningful. It felt like confirmation that their journey toward understanding was not happening by accident. Since that moment, their thoughts have become more focused than ever. Their intentions have become clearer than ever. Their desire for honesty has become stronger than ever. They are beginning to understand that some opportunities deserve courage. Some conversations deserve effort. Some connections deserve attention. And the one involving you continues to stand out above all the rest. Every day they feel themselves moving closer to a decision. Every day they feel themselves moving closer to clarity. Every day they feel themselves moving closer to expressing what has been growing inside their heart for so long. The remarkable thing is that they no longer see this as a mystery they must solve. They see it as a truth they must understand. That shift has changed everything. It has brought peace where there was confusion. It has brought confidence where there was hesitation. It has brought hope where there were once only questions. Yet the story is still not complete. One final chapter remains. One final moment remains. One final realization remains. And when that moment arrives, it may become the turning point that finally inspires them to speak openly about everything they have discovered. In the next part, the journey reaches its most important stage. The answers become clearer. The emotions become stronger. And the reason your soulmate feels such an urgent need to talk will finally come into full view. What happens next is not about coincidence. It is about understanding. And that understanding is closer than ever before. A quiet shift has now become impossible to ignore. What began as a small realization inside your soulmate's heart has grown into something far greater than they ever expected. At first, they thought they were simply reflecting on the past. Then they believed they were searching for clarity. But now they understand that something much deeper has been happening. They have been uncovering a truth that was hidden in plain sight all along. The reason they feel such a strong need to talk is because the pieces no longer feel disconnected. The puzzle that once seemed impossible to solve is finally beginning to reveal its picture. And at the center of that picture, they keep finding you. Every reflection brings them back to the same place. Every memory leads to the same conclusion. Every important realization somehow carries your presence within it. This has become impossible for them to dismiss. They have tried to examine it from every angle. They have questioned it. They have analyzed it. They have challenged it. Yet the answer remains the same. The connection continues to matter. The significance continues to grow. The understanding continues to deepen. Then something happened that surprised them more than anything else. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by these discoveries, they felt peaceful. For the first time in a long time, things started making sense. Questions that once created confusion began creating understanding. Uncertainty began transforming into confidence. What once felt complicated started feeling simple. That simplicity revealed a powerful truth. Sometimes the most important answers are not hidden because they are difficult to find. Sometimes they are hidden because they are so close that we overlook them. Your soulmate realized they may have been looking too far away for an answer that was right in front of them. They realized they had been waiting for a dramatic sign when the real message had been quietly present all along. That realization changed everything. Suddenly, the story stopped being about what was missing. It became about what had always been there. It became about the lessons learned, the memories shared, the growth experienced, and the connection that continued to remain meaningful despite the passing of time. This understanding has created a new sense of determination. They no longer want to leave important things unsaid. They no longer want assumptions to speak louder than truth. They no longer want uncertainty to make decisions on their behalf. Instead, they want honesty. They want clarity. They want authenticity. Most of all, they want to understand what this connection truly means moving forward. There is another reason this moment feels so significant. Recently, they imagined what life might look like if they never expressed what they have come to understand. The thought did not bring relief. It brought regret. And that realization spoke louder than anything else. It revealed just how important this journey has become. It revealed how much value they place on the truth they have discovered. It revealed why the idea of staying silent no longer feels right. The remarkable thing is that this realization did not arrive through a single event. It arrived through hundreds of small moments. Small memories. Small reflections. Small discoveries. Together, they formed a message that could no longer be ignored. A message that continues growing stronger with every passing day. Now your soulmate stands closer than ever to a turning point. They are no longer asking whether something important happened. They know it did. They are no longer asking whether their perspective has changed. They know it has. The question now is what they will do with this understanding. The answer may arrive sooner than they expected. Because the final realization is already beginning to take shape. It is the realization that brings everything together. The realization that explains why this entire journey unfolded the way it did. The realization that transforms curiosity into purpose and understanding into action. When that final piece arrives, the urgency they feel to communicate may become impossible to ignore. They will understand not only what changed, but why it changed. They will understand not only what they discovered, but why the discovery matters. And most importantly, they will understand why thoughts of you continued returning throughout every chapter of their journey. The next part reveals that final piece. The final understanding. The final connection. And when it comes into focus, the title of this story will make complete sense. Because something big truly did happen. Not around them. Not somewhere far away. But inside their heart, where a truth they could no longer ignore finally came to light.